Welcome everybody to Aeon Byte. Glad you liked that introduction, Susan.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great. Heresy should not be this much fun.
but it is. It just is. Yeah, that's one of
It's-
my opening lines. And yes, the other one is welcome everybody to AB Live. Down the rabbit hole we go. For those are red and blue pills and all the other pills. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am still your Pompatus of Gnosis. And glad to see everybody. I know it's a holiday weekend, and for Americans, so hope everybody enjoyed your holidays, or if you're still on a holiday, enjoyed your fireworks or whatever Americana mythology falling you decide to choose. For everybody else, some of you, are going, why did this country turn into an empire? But anyway, let's not get into that. Here we are. So, but anyway, a great show. Very excited about everything as always, and certainly excited to have again the wonderful T. Susan Chang to discuss her new book, The Living Tarot, connecting the cards to everyday life for better reading. Susan, thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Miguel. It's been a minute. I think the last time was 2018, right after Tarot Correspondences came out.
Exactly. It was fall of 2018, and man, what a
Yeah.
different world. I hate to say it, but I don't know if I like this new world, but I don't miss the old world. Is that kind of strange to
That
say?
seems fair. That seems
Yeah.
fair to me.
It's like there's something else out there, which hopefully we are fumbling towards
Yes.
if we don't run into
Yes.
our extinction
Slouching
before.
towards.
Yeah, slouching towards Bethlehem, as the poem says. And with us too, we've got the greatest sloucher in the world, the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm okay. Love the tarot, especially the major arc, kinda.
Mm.
So, as Moondog.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, everybody's going into the chat room, or as we call it, the Chitico, based on Witiko, because whenever there's a fight that breaks out. But Vance here, as always, is a great shepherd and demiurge of the chat room. As always, please, so we can figure things out, super chat your questions for Susan if you have them, or comments. You can do it just for $1, but again, it separates them and we can get to your questions and all the maelstrom that's over there. Other than that, not much else for housekeeping. It's been a crazy summer, but a lot of good stuff coming on Aeon Byte in the future, which I will get to sooner rather than later. So, Susan, tell us about how you came about the Living Tarot.
Yes. So, well, as you might remember, my first book, Tarot Correspondences, was pretty far down that rabbit hole. It was
Mm.
fairly technical, fairly esoteric, all about basically a 777 for tarot. And then came the Fortune's Wheelhouse podcast, which also nerds upon nerds and wormholes upon wormholes. And then out of that came the Tarot Deciphered book, which is basically the podcast in paper. And then came 36 Secrets, which is my book on the minors, again focusing on the minor arcana and the ways that we can apply Kabbalistic, astrological, etc. Filters to understand them better. Now, at this point, I thought it was probably time to actually write a book that practically everybody could understand. Who had an interest in tarot. And, over the years, I have had such a longing and desire to share tarot with the world, but I've always known that like trying to get people to do it through correspondences was not the way.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of us love them. A lot of us come from that background, or love the matchy match systems and what goes with what. But for the majority of people, I felt that there needed to be a way in that was truer to the way we experience tarot in a reading. And as a person who's done a lot of readings for people, I found myself constantly translating between, all this stuff, you know, and and what the actual problem was for the actual person, and how we could rethink or reframe So, so I tried teaching these little courses about tarot out of my house for a little while, but I felt that what I needed to do was to come up with sort of a grand unified theory of how to do this, because
Mhm.
I honestly think that tarot is a living language. It is a personal language. It's completely idiosyncratic to each reader. So how can you even teach that to anybody? Each of us comes to it in a different way. And over time, I found, as I was reading for people in this sort of little shop where I'd taken up residence once a week, that when people ask, "How do I learn tarot?" I would basically say, "Okay, you know, we can't do this right here, right now. But what I'd like you to do is go home and do two things. One, draw a card of the day. And two, look around you at just ordinary things happening in your life and say, where do I find this in the tarot deck? How can I find it?" So I've realized after doing this innumerable times that this was the seed for how to teach people to teach themselves tarot, to start observing the world around them and just see, how is it relevant to me? Just like in astrology, you start by like reading your own chart 6
Right.
days from Sunday and finding out all the things that that are relevant to you, because you're the center of the universe. You're the center of the universe in tarot too, and that is good news for anybody who wants to start. There, you don't have to memorize things. You don't have to go worship at the feet of Aleister Crowley or Arthur Edward Waite or anybody. You're the expert. And this book is about returning the expertise to you so you can speak your own personal tarot language.
Yeah, well said. As you write in your book, there are no novice tarot readers, and I liked it a lot because I enjoyed your book. In fact, I definitely want to start doing the tarot. I guess I don't know if we'll have another lockdown, maybe an alien lockdown or a nuclear war lockdown, or well, if there's another lockdown, or in the winter, I'll do it because I learned astrology or got into astrology this year, and it's been a disaster. The stars hate me, the archons hate me, everything is blown up and gives me it doesn't matter who does the reading. And I've been lazy with the tarot, Susan, because my wife she's a beast with tarot reading. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
she's a devout Catholic who's just amazing at tarot. So I get these great readings and I get a speech about saving my soul and all that, but it works out.
Catholics
But
have a head start because of their relationship with symbol, I think.
yeah, exactly, exactly. A good Catholic knows that kind of language. And as you said, yeah, it's all about a language. I mean, the
Mm.
great innovators of our time, whether it was Crowley or Jung or even Tolkien, I think they were trying to create a new language because they realized we
Yeah.
are trapped by our language. And if we're trapped by our language, we can't see a different reality. It's very simple. Our language creates new reality. And as you say, the tarot helps you create a new reality or see a new reality,
Mm.
yourself and
Mm.
outward, right?
Yes, I think so. I think because it's a language of pictures, it takes you out of the logos, and
Mm,
into a place that's uh, pre-verbal and pre all your assumptions. I mean, your world is shaped by your word and by the way that you articulate it, you know,
mhm,
with your own language. But I think that, and I take this from the Jungians, that the pre-verbal world is imagistic. The
mhm,
world of the subconscious and the unconscious is imagistic. And I think also that that's part of what's happening in magic as well. The fact that we connect with something that is not limited by the way we pin it down verbally, but something that that expresses itself in images which co-contaminate and expand outward into infinite constellations.
No, I think you hit it on the nail, and our brains have not changed. I think
Mm.
deep down, we live in that world of language, mythology, symbols, and after that, of course, is the archetypes, where the power is. In fact, there is, if you don't mind, I'm going to quote you. I had the question: Tarot is a language, but it's also a worldview. But here you write, my own belief is that working with symbol ultimately is working with reality. That's what makes tarot such a powerful practice. As above, so below, as within, so without. We reflect the larger patterns of the universe, and the universe reflects the patterns within us. One does not precede or cause the other, they are co-arise.
Mhm.
When we do divination, we deliberately create chaos through randomness or shuffling or scattering. We use the chaotic field to reflect or project the patterns we cannot otherwise perceive. And when that happens, meaningful coincidence between the eternal and external reality arise, not sometimes, but always. It's what Jung call synchronicity. So great
Right.
quote if you want to speak more to it.
Yes, I think the best way to sort of in the mundane world to think about how this works is to think about the sky, is the night sky, which is full of stars. And it's not as though the constellations are predetermined up there. We see the constellations, we
Mhm.
project the constellations onto that field of stars, and we make meaning from it as we do. And yet, that would not be possible if the field of stars were not already there. We co create with the natural order to produce meaning for ourselves. And it's an ongoing, constant collaboration between the eternal order and the mundane. So, I mean, I think one way, I think in one of the Jungian books I've read recently, described the Tao as the nothingness upon which something depends, right? So
Mhm.
that's what we have. Without the chaos, we don't have the order. They go hand in hand, and there's something about the two of them that are partners and that we stand always in between, in the middle, in the liminal space, getting to negotiate that for ourselves, both in magic and in divination.
No, really well said. I think that's what the Hermeticists said, that that's what makes us special as humans, is that we sit between heaven and earth, between we are where the fallen angel meets the rising ape. So we have
Yeah.
that special kind of connection to both worlds, and that's what we should do.
Yes,
Caretakers
and
of the
it's
cosmos.
exactly. I mean, and there's something about it too. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, about the idea that, we stand between our belief that we have free will and the fact of fate and circumstance, right?
Hmm.
And that we have to pretend. We have to pretend that we have control of this thing, that we actually, it's just going to happen anyway. But it is the human condition to play that game and to be loved by the gods for it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it is a playful game. And one part of your book, which I think we should address, but I love the title, "Who You Gonna Call?" And that's probably what the readers tell you all the time, Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing with this, but what's on the other side, Susan? What is on the other side?
Yeah. Yeah, and and that's I've seen so many people ask this question, who's on the other end of this line, you know, and sometimes it's like out of fear, like am I talking to I literally was in
Yeah.
Singapore like some years ago and I talked to a very well-educated person who asked me, point blank, poker face, is it Satan? Are you talking to Satan?
Could it be Satan, like the
Could it
church lady?
possibly be Satan?
See him down there with
And
the control panel, "Oh, let's see, put this card here, put that
yeah.
card there."
Right? And and then there are others who are absolutely certain that it's their personal guardian angel, or and the Golden Dawn, they themselves said it is for certain true. The angel of tarot. So,
Mhm,
I mean, I think it is I think there's a grain of truth in all of that, right?
mhm,
And I think probably the best way for a modern person to approach it is to sort of think about, like, what is going on in your default settings, right? When you are placed in a situation, how do you react? What are the voices that are causing you to do that? Is it, the voice of your grandmother? Is it the voice of your kids? Is it the voice of your third grade math teacher? Is it the voice of Gandalf? Or the president, whatever it is, somebody is there. We are polymorphous human beings, and I think that rather than going and saying it's some external supernatural human being, which is one way to look at it. For those of us who don't have a lot of practice thinking about spirits talking to us all the time, it's probably more useful to say, well, this is a version of myself. This is the very best, most constructive and useful version of myself, not the one that's sitting in bed eating chocolate at 3 in the morning, not that one, who is valid and exists, but the one that's going to help me get where I want to go. So that's a good way to start. But I also feel that it's worth scrutinizing where those assumptions come from. And in the who you going to call exercise, I have people sort of like, make a composite of both their best influences and their worst ones, and to kind of discover who that is, and to ritualize around it.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, who you gonna call? And what's that person gonna do for you? That's exactly the point. And
Mm.
the other, I guess, the other issue too would be divination. What is your stance on divination? I think you write in your book, divination is about not being afraid. Think of it as
Yeah.
playing a game. After all, divination is one of the hermetic arts, and Hermes is the god of games. Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Absolutely. And I think that that's fundamental. It's not so much about the rules of the game as the attitude towards the game, right?
Mhm.
I think one of the things about games, theoretically, generally, is that we get very involved in them when we're playing them, and we really want to win. That's the nature of the game. It's not fun if you don't want to win. However, afterwards you just let it go. It's just a game. You let it go. And to me, that is pretty much exactly parallel to the attitude in which you pick up a magical working, right? You really, really care. You invest it with all of this energy, and you charge your sigil, and you raise energy, and then afterwards does not matter, need not be, right? You
Mhm.
Because that part, the rest of it is not your job. Right? In fact, it's none of your business. So so there's there's the attitude about divination, which also, so that's the magical side of it. On the divination side of it, I think it's slightly different, in the sense that I think that we approach it um, with the same willingness to listen, a passionate willingness to listen, right? But without having skin in the game, without lust of result, without pushing on it, And if you're asking a question in divination where you care so much that you can't let go of the outcome, like there's one right answer, then it's probably not divination. It's probably not the right question. So it's a bit like, I think that the ideal mindset for divination is probably similar to what that Keats called the negative capability, the idea that you are fully, completely present to the very tips of your fingers, but that you are observing as passionately as you would normally act passionately.
Well said. Yeah, it reminds me of the quote by Ursula Le Guin: "How you play is what you win."
How
I
you
think,
play.
yeah. Or
Nice.
as Gary Lockman once said, Hermes is the god of journeys, not destinations. The ride,
That's
it's the
wonderful.
ride that matters for this god that rules the tarot and all of magic. And as I say, rules this
That's
age.
right.
This is the age of Hermes. We are
That's right.
officially at the age of transitions and doorways and nasty tricks played on us. And all.
Yes, and I think, the idea of divination meaning not being afraid. I mean, that's the thing about Hermes, right? Hermes goes everywhere, anywhere. Nothing stands in the way of Hermes. And I think part of our great fear, the source of our fear and anxiety in this world, is of the unknown, of places
Mhm.
that don't seem safe to go. But if you're the one for whom all places are safe, then there is no fear, right? If you're going with wherever you go, you have the friend to man beside you. There is no fear. And I think that, particularly in divination and expression, of the hermetic nature of it is the fact that we work with chaos, the fact that we work with uh, with with randomization, with sortilege, with these cards that we deliberately take out of order and scatter however we can, or with its yarrow sticks or runes or whatever it is. We court that chaos, we court that randomness, and by doing that, we are saying that this system of objects or whatever it is, which represents everything that is or might be or could be imagined, everything is here, and I'm going to just pick whatever because I'm not afraid, to face that chaos and say whatever, I will take it, is an incredible act, I think, of metaphysical courage.
Yeah, well said. And I should mention that in the myths, Hermes is a trickster, but he never plays tricks on humans. It's all the gods. That's his
That's
game.
right. That's right.
He is the one who helps Odysseus the most. He and Hecate. I've
Yeah.
always read people
Yeah.
don't make
Yeah.
that connection and realize they might be the same,
Oh
Hecate and
yes.
Hermes. But
Yes, I think in the PGM there's an epithet, Herma Heka, or
ah,
Heka Hermes, I think. They
yeah, that
conflate it.
is.
Yeah.
I think it's an important aspect that most occultists need to remember because they kind of sell these gods short. But yeah,
Yeah.
for the audience, yeah, the Living Tarot, and it's not just there's great again commentary on Susan, like we're talking right now, but she will actually take you on a journey with graphs, sections for notes, and bang, bang, bang. So it's very well. I don't want to say logical, but it is. There's a step, but
There's a progression.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a progression. And it's also, this is the first workbook I've ever really done. I mean, I think, Llewellyn was not at all, wasn't quite sure how they were going to present it because they don't normally do workbooks, but they were kind enough and open-minded enough to try and place this book in a way that that really is meant to engage with the reader. It's really
Mhm.
meant for you to write in it, like a book you can actually write in, sacrilege, but it's meant to be become your own, to become a record of your journey uh working through tarot. And it is not done when you're done, right? It's like tourney, it's a like tarot, it's an ongoing journey. You will always be learning from it. But I think that, my hope is that people engage with it so thoroughly and so meaningfully that at the end it's really a grimoire. It's a record of your progress and a reminder and a grimoire of your work in tarot as a magical person.
Yes, I highly recommend it. Susan will be your Hermes and Hecate, taking you down into the underworld to find yourself. I mean, I'm thinking two quotes by Gordon White, which I think are useful.
Mhm.
One is he always said, "If you smile at the unconscious will smile back at you." And I think this is what this
Yes.
book helps. Whether you want to call the
Yes.
unconscious the gods, your soul, the whatever it
Yeah.
is, the Akashic records, and I'm also I'm sort of letting this out of the bag, Susan. Believe it or not, I'm writing a book on Elvis Presley, who is
Oh, no way.
yeah, he's the most occultist person you've ever met. I mean, he was the biggest magician you could think of. He could manipulate weather,
Huh.
astral travel.
No kidding.
Yeah, he could heal people at a touch, whether they had heart attacks or headaches. There's a whole part of Elvis that nobody knows about, even though Priscilla and everybody was there when he was doing all this,
Yeah.
strange things. So, and he was a
Yeah.
huge adept of Blavatsky, Manly P. Hall. He read the Gospel of
No
Thomas.
kidding.
He had several extraterrestrial experiences. He was all into Von Daniken and Chariots of the God and was convinced he was starseed. I mean, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
I was like, well, Elvis is the greatest magician, but oh shit, now I gotta define magic. So you know how it is when people do, I'm gonna
Yeah.
quote Crowley, I'm gonna quote this
Yeah.
Goetia and all that. And I asked Gordon, he said, "Oh, magic is just being a co-creator with the universe." I'm like, well, thanks. I just wrote like 10 pages. I could have just written that and gone writing about Elvis. So what do you think of that? What do you think of that in relation to when people ask you what is tarot magic?
Yes, I mean, I do think it is about stepping up and co-creating deliberately. I think we are co-creating already, I mean, I think that we don't actually get a choice about that. But I think there's something about magical acts that, where you step up and take responsibility, for being a co-creator, for actually, stepping outside the mundane uses of the symbol and assigning, working with it, giving it the gift of your intent. I often talk about sacrifice, about the making of sacredness, sacrifice in the context of tarot, because tarot is, every tarot reading, every tarot draw from the chaos of randomness is a act of sacrifice, I think. And I think that what we sacrifice is doubt. We return, what returns to us is meaning. So to me, the co-creation of the universe that's what it's about. It's about summoning meaning into existence, right? You and the universe, hand in hand. It makes so much sense to me that that what you're saying about Elvis. I mean, that man was for sure at the nexus of his own reality. you know, there was no moment at which he was not. So I'm not at all surprised to learn what you're telling me. But I think it's an inspiration, and I also think that. Those of us who engage in art of any kind are just that much closer to magic, right? Because of the amount of just humanity that we pour into the space between us and fixed reality, what we perceive as fixed reality. Something comes alive in there, right? Something moves. And I think that, it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about just the concept of movement generally, and the primum mobile, right? And about the idea that if everything's in motion, then when you are doing divination and you're trying to learn about your fate, well, that's in motion too. Your fate's not fixed. Your fate is moving. Everything moves. So, and just as it's easier to steer something that's in motion, you can also influence something that's in motion. You can influence something. You can get a sense of the trajectory when you're doing divination. You can influence the movement when you're doing magic.
Beautifully said. Yeah, there's another quote that you write. Speaking of meaning, you write, Susan, to learn tarot is to enter into a long-term relationship with meaning. Perfect. And like any long-term relationship, it depends not just on the moments of high drama, tragedy, exhilaration, and romance, although these certainly occur, but the long, quiet, peaceful, ordinary stretches of life. And I think that might
Yes.
be the best gift, right? Meaning, bringing more meaning into the universe.
That's right. I mean, I think sometimes when people first start with tarot, they crack the deck and, and maybe they get a major arcanum and it's, a little chill goes down your spine when that first happens. But then, you get like, the 5 of swords and, all of a sudden you have to figure out this thing and why it's great, right? And why it's numinous. And, and I think if you can find the meaning and the numinosity in a card like the 3 of Pentacles or the 5 of Swords, and you can find meaning and numinosity in everything. And that, I think, is part of what tarot teaches us, that our lives are ordinary, but they're also extraordinary at the same time. And I think, one of the things that I introduced first in the book is the idea of drawing a card every day and tracking it, because the cards themselves will tell you over time what they are trying to talk about. They will tell you, not only, the big exciting stuff, but also the little stuff. It's like, if one of the things that I discovered about the King of Pentacles over many years of tracking is that I often just have a really great meal, or I cook something amazing when I get the King of Pentacles. It's not a big deal. It's not like I become famous or rich or or court the blessings of the demiurge in some other way. But I just have something great to eat, and that is fantastic. and for a person like me, for whom the highlight of every day is dinner, that's meaningful.
What kind of food are you into these days?
Oh gosh. Well, I seem to be cooking a lot of mm, Chinese and Southeast Asian food.
Mhm.
And it's not even like I didn't really learn to cook Chinese food from my parents or anything. I learned a little from my grandmother, but it's more because I have this history as a cookbook reviewer. So I get cookbooks all the
Mm.
time. And right now there are like all these amazing Chinese cookbooks. So so my every night my husband's like, "Oh, look, Chinese again."
Gotta go through all the books.
Yeah, but except the last week the big thing was it was July 4th, and I make every July 4th or around July 4th. Sometimes it's like July 39th, but around July 4th I make fried chicken. I have like this whole
Mhm.
process of making fried chicken outside, and that's a great joy of mine that's has nothing to do with Chinese food.
I don't know. It all sounds yummy. Well, Vance, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I don't see anything from the audience right now, but
No,
I
they're
was
very
wondering.
lively down there. Definitely a lot of good
Oh
comments.
yeah,
But
oh yeah, definitely talk surrounding all sorts of things, tarot and otherwise. Um, the fact that the tarot is personal, and of course the meaning is personal, right? I mean, you can't have
Yeah.
meaning for someone else.
Hmm.
How does that relate when you're doing readings for other people?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think that we have personal meanings, we have archetypal meaning that is shared with the collective, and that there's even though my high priestess and your high priestess are going to be different, there are also commonalities. So, in the course of a reading, I think that it's a both and situation. Like there's the collective knowledge base, there's your knowledge base, and then there's the person you're reading for who has a knowledge base. And hopefully, I think that the reading is a conversation, not it's not the reader coming in there and telling you how things are, right, and telling you like it is. No, it is a conversation between the two parties who are concerned. And I might have all kinds of ideas about, oh, let's see, let's pick up the, I don't know, like the star card or something, right? There's a lot of agreement about the star card in terms of it having something to do with hope, something to do with healing, something to do with authenticity. But you could have someone who has never read tarot before, and they'd be like, "Oh, look, there's a bird on the tree. I have a parakeet who means the world to me." And that is equally valid, if not more, right? So I feel that that not only my personal uh relationship with the star, which has a lot to do with literal stardom, and the ideas of hope and healing, and the parakeet are all valid, right? Because every reading is contextual, and the context that you use is the thing the person brings to you. So I think that there's something about asking a question that instantly starts to populate the mind with answers, and the cooperation between the image that is presented to you and the answers populating your mind somehow arises. There somehow arises this thing that is useful and meaningful and beneficial to the querent, whose own images are part of that as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. Almost like an intelligent Rorschach test, only with deeper
Yeah.
meaning, right?
Yeah, or shallow meaning too, right? I sometimes, there is such a thing, and I don't think I talk about this in the book, but I think there really is such a thing as ambient tarot, just sort of like tarot that's just like, shooting the shit and color commenting on your day. Like I
Muzak
on
tarot.
my yeah, my phone is an oracle. It changes every 2 minutes. This is the
mm,
7 of Wands. It must be commenting on the fact that I had very little sleep last night, and I'm kind of struggling to keep my energy up. But there's and my screensaver on my laptop changes every 30 seconds, on tarot.
Mm.
I think that there's a way you can use tarot that's just kind of for fun. I mean, like there was the example I often give is this time when the astrologer Austin Kopic and I were at symposium together, and we needed to record something. And we didn't quite know exactly where we were supposed to go. We were going to borrow somebody's cabin, so we had a quiet place to record. And we were like, sort of lost, wandering among these cabins, wondering whether we're at the right one. And so when we finally get to the one we think is the right one, we both pull out our tarot decks. and tarot says, I don't remember what Austin got, but I got the Fool. And I was like, okay, this is it. We're in. So, I mean, I think that there is a way to just, hermetically play games with tarot, and to acknowledge that that the reality that you perceive in the cards is every bit as real as the reality that you're seeing with your physical eyes.
For sure, no doubt about that. Reality is pretty brittle. We're co-creating. It's interactive, and it's not even a woo thing. I think science more and more backs this up.
Yeah. I mean, what was I just reading the other day? I think it was in Sally Nichols's Jungian Tarot book, and about the the depressing fact that when you come right down to what we are at, like an atomic level, you are nothing more than a tendency to exist, right?
Yeah. As Vance and I were talking, we did a show on quantum physics and Gnosticism, and when you realize that particles are not objects, they're irritations in the quantum field. We're just irritations of some vast soup lagoon of consciousness. All
that
three
explains
of us.
So much.
We're little waves, that act this
That's
way
right.
and act that way. So
need cosmic aspirin sometimes, huh?
Yes, precisely.
Well, quantum does interact with tarot, and you know why? You shuffle the deck, right? And here you have all these the backs of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
The card, according to quantum theory, the card that you're going to turn up doesn't exist. It's like Schrodinger's tarot card until you turn it over.
I actually believe that. That's the attitude I take towards every reading, that there is no way that I can know what it is. In fact, there's no certainty as to what it is, even in itself. The card could be anything until I see it, until it's observed.
I like that Schrodinger's deck. But I wanted to mention one of our sponsors. This is a sponsor for Astronosis, and they've been a great help to the show. Again, they are behind behind Susan's book, and I'm glad they went for the workbook thing, because this is a great book. But Llewellyn is the world's oldest and largest independent publisher of books for body, mind, and spirit. Llewellyn is dedicated to bringing our readers the very best in metaphysical books and resources. Since 1901, Llewellyn has been at the forefront of holistic and metaphysical publishing and thought. So go to Llewellyn, get these books. These are some of our past guests that include Lon Milo Duquette, Joe Graham, and of course the great John Michael Greer. And they put out Susan. So they are putting out just amazing work that is expanding consciousness. So, and again, they were very great supporting our conference, and they're great to work for as a podcaster. Just the whole team is a joy, friendly.
They really are. They're delightful. And I've really never, I occasionally do publish books on my own, but there is just such a confidence and relief in turning it over to a publisher who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, of course. Because it's great to have a team, and as much as our egos don't want to admit it, Susan, we all have blind spots. Even if we've edited a book 20 times and grandma loves it.
Yeah. And not to mention that Llewellyn, because of their incredible reach, they go into all those little stores. You can find, you can get the Living Tarot on Amazon for sure, but also, you go into your little, New Age rock shop, it's going to be there too. And that is something you cannot get from, a publisher who's very, very small, or from yourself. Llewellyn really does have fantastic, as they say, market penetration.
Yeah, they were when we did our conference at the Theosophical Society in Wheaton. The Quest bookshop, a great
Yeah,
bookstore, had plenty of
yeah.
their books. We went to the library, and God, you would love this library, Susan. It's like Harry Potter library.
Oh my God!
And you can
Wow.
find these amazing books, and then they have a section of these very unique books that you cannot check out. You can read it there, but you just can't. So
Yeah, yeah. I bet. Yeah,
books
that's
rule,
cool.
books rule. So check it
Books are
out.
the
And
best. Yeah.
well, let's get back a little bit about some of the questions that some people have probably asked you for years. We talked about, what is magic? Who's on the other side? What's the
Yeah.
deal? All that good stuff. But another one which your book deals is how do I live my lifestyle? How do I prepare to be a good tarot reader? I think that's a valid one, because the more you start reading how the ancients did things, whether it was
Mhm.
Hermetics, Gnostic, Christians, Jews, there was a lot of preparation for most things. There was a lot of keeping yourself pure in your attitude. It was just as important as the actual ritual.
Yes, yes. I think that that's interesting. I mean, I think one of the things about tarot is that it has a very, very low barrier to entry, which is what I love about it. You don't
Mhm.
need an athame, you don't need a robe, you don't need like to make your own pentacle or anything like that. You can just go to Barnes and Noble and buy your own deck, and that's okay, right?
Mhm.
People don't let anyone tell you can't buy your own deck. It's totally okay to buy your own deck, even if it's your first one. And one of the things about tarot is that although it's so easy to start, demands things of you. If you I mean, you get out of it what you put into it, right? It's like Othello, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. And it's like the thing about in terms of preparing yourself to read tarot that I think is worth remembering is that, again, it is about finding meaning. And you can't really find meaning when you're eating cheese doodles in front of Netflix and trying to do a tarot reading, right? That's not really going to work, right? You can't read tarot while you're roller skating and juggling teddy bears. You can't do that because it takes a certain amount of attention and a little bit of space. So one of the things that means is that ritual's important, if you want to get meaning out of tarot, and also asking the question in a way that you can get answers. So, one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking about, I think it's chapter 4 or no, chapter 5, is how to ask a question. And it's like, oh my God, I've just read half the book and you're finally telling me how to ask a question. This is why I have a tarot deck. What took you so long? So, but, but I think it's important because just like with language, if you ask a question, no matter how well you speak the language, it's you have to have a certain amount of vocabulary in order to understand the answer. If you ask, I'm learning Dutch right now, and
Hmm.
for reasons, and one of the questions I always think about because it asks us to translate it is like, how do you say in conversation, what do you think about the economy? Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I know how to say that in Dutch, but I could never answer that question in Dutch, right? Because I just don't have the vocabulary. It's like,
Right.
how do you answer, what do you think about the economy? If all you know is how do I get to the bathroom, right? Or how to order an appetizer, right? So that's why it takes a little while for me to get to asking questions in this book because I want people to build out their vocabulary first.
Yeah.
So,
Don't they have
yeah.
raspberries in Dutch?
Exactly. So I think one of the ways you prepare yourself to read tarot is by opening up your mind to all the ways that life shows up in tarot. And then when you ask a question, you ask yourself, well, do I actually know the answer to this question?
Mhm.
Do I actually only want one answer to this question? Right. And if you only want one answer, chances are you should be doing magic, not divination. Right. But, but, uh, but I think it is important to to be as sort of mentally clean as you can, as opposed to like I don't think you have to fast or abstain or anything like that. I mean, yes, wash your hands if you have smart food dust on them. But in but in terms of just um approaching tarot for answers, I think the best thing to do is just to have preserve the hygiene of an open mind above all, and be willing to consider any answer, no matter how scary or not scary. And in fact, a really good way to prepare for that is to do what I call priming the pump, which is, when you think about your question, you imagine like 4 or 5 possible different answers and what those might look like in tarot. Something about doing that kind of, gets the engine going, gets the metaphor engine going, so that even when you shuffle the cards and you draw the random card, which is none of those 4 or 5 cards you imagine, it's so much easier to start interpreting it and get the answers you need because you did the work beforehand.
And you also talk about there's something called a psychic buzz experience. What is that? That goes with it too.
Yes, it does. It does. So, one of the things that I noticed right when I began reading tarot was like I would pick up the deck and there was like a zzz, sort of like touching or licking a battery kind of a thing, or touching a electric appliance, just sort of an energy to it, and I thought, well, that's weird, but the moment I did it, I picked them up again, I experienced it again. So with time, I began to realize that this was a thing, and that we could use this thing to use the power of the body, the power of the non-thinking parts of the human organism, to get to something that was more truthful. So what I do is, you may or may not experience that when you pick up the deck, but you can certainly experience it in your body just by doing the experiment, which is to think of something that you love, something or someone that you love, and observe how that feels in your body. You can feel, I almost feel like it's almost like there's a magnet out there and everything sort of aligns itself towards the magnet. There's a feeling of like openness and anticipation even. And then, then the opposite, you can also connect with the opposite, which is think of something that you hate. And this is not a very comfortable exercise, but it's worth doing. I always think of cheddar cheese, which is just my thing. But and what I notice is that like there's there's a feeling of like holding yourself in and kind of shutting down. And I'm sure some of you are doing it right now, where you can just feel like you're protecting yourself in a way. So when you prepare yourself to read, it's good to sort of open yourself up. It's good to use that feeling in the body of yes, of I am interested, I am excited, I am desirous of the meaning that's about to come to me. And I think, to me, this is consonant with the idea that the universe runs on eros, that the motion of the cosmos is driven by eros, which is a very old idea, but I think works well for divination.
Yeah, the old Ian Culiano. Eros is the binding principle of the universe, whether it's
Yes.
stars, atoms, it's a very important force. So
yes,
I would
yes.
agree with that one too. Yeah, some people in the chat keep asking, is this a beginner's workbook? For those of you who have joined late, yes. This is for you if you want to start on your journey of tarot. If you're intermediate or advanced, you're also going to find a lot of tools and ideas to help you out. So yes, it's
yes,
you want to start here.
absolutely. The idea is to take you from from not knowing anything about tarot, having just bought your first deck, to being able to read for everyone, if you wish to do that, or just for yourself, because that's legitimate too. I mean, I do the exercises in here all the time. They are tools to be used again and again, just like, after the first 10 times you use a hammer, you don't throw it out. That's the same idea with this book.
Yeah, like one of them is draw a card every day, right?
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah. Draw a card every day.
And how does that help out, or how would you explain it to a novice?
Yes. So, one thing about the card of the day that I think is wonderful is that it provides you with sort of a constant companion. Um, to the constant dialogue going on in your head, like, when is a good time to think about the card you drew in the morning? Well, when you are upset, when you are confused, when you're just buffering, when there are many times during the course of the day when you could use a little bit of guidance, at least if you're me. I mean,
Mhm.
at least half a dozen, if not more. And the thing about the tarot is that it is a way of sort of you know how in the Kabbalah there's a theory that in each sephira there's an exit door
Right.
out of each sephira. I sort of think of tarot that way. It's sort of like when you are sort of bound up in this sort of circling cyclical dialogue in your head, it offers an exit door, right? A way of concentrating on something external to you and allowing meaning to arise in the space, something different that's from what's going on in there. So I find that card of the day is fantastic for that. One thing that does happen sometimes is that people get afraid, because they're afraid of what might happen if they draw, the Ten of Swords or the Nine of the Swords or the Devil or the Death card first thing in the morning. And if you're really afraid, a good thing to do is just do it at night, after the day's done, as a like commentary on what happened, and see how tarot describes your day.
Mhm.
It's completely legitimate.
No, yeah, certainly makes perfect sense. And the question I have for you is, I do for divination. I do the I Ching. It's really worked out for me, and I would do it.
Mhm.
I had a reader. I do the whole shebang with the sticks and the coins. But my friend Maja Dao, who's just an amazing I Ching reader, she's like, no, you can use an app. An app works perfectly. What is
Yes.
your view on app versus cards?
I think apps are fine. I think it's what you put into it. The danger of an app is just that you might take it too casually, and not take it seriously just because it's so available and accessible. I think the ritual of doing something physical literally puts more skin in the game, right? But you can absolutely use apps. I love them. I think that it's fantastic when you are traveling light. I've certainly drawn card of the day with apps. I really do believe that divination is not tool dependent. It
Hmm.
is a way of looking at the world, you know, not a gadget, right? So even if you found yourself in the middle of the woods with nothing but sticks and stones, you could do divination, right? And similarly, if you found yourself in a locked antiseptic room with nothing but your phone and an app, you can do divination, right?
Do you do any other divination? You're talking about Austin. He's obviously known for his astrology. You mentioned he whipped out the tarot. Do you use other forms of divination?
Well, I mean, of course, there's a huge debate over whether astrology is a form of divination or not, but I certainly use astrology for various things. I've done some electional work using astrology. Um, and I own runes. I own yarrow sticks. I
Oh.
occasionally take them out. I will do geomancy from time to time. Generally, I'm a mostly tarot person, but
Mhm.
every once in a while, I have taken out all the tools and used them all at once because when it was something like I did this for, I think, the 2018 midterms because I was really concerned. And and I thought, this is bigger than me. I need all the tools. So I took out like 6 or 7 different tools, and they all said the same thing. So
Oh,
that
okay.
was helpful.
Good thing they agreed. Good thing they agreed.
Yes.
But like we say, 2018, that's like ancient history.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I mean I really love I think I Ching is very similar in spirit to tarot.
Mm,
I think that if you read I Ching, you can read tarot and vice versa. I think that they are quite similar, similarly non-prescriptive, similar relationship with chaos, similar interpretive model. Yeah.
very true. Well, Vince, I think I see some super chat questions. You want to put them on the
Yes.
screen, and and hand them
All
over to
right.
Susan.
Here's one from our friend Altrusian.
Yeah,
Great
he's also a
medium.
sponsor of the show. He was a sponsor
Yes,
of the conference, and
he
we
was.
collaborate. Check out his
Oh,
audiobooks and check out his work. He does a great video work. I wonder if his channel has tarot. Matt, do you have any tarot readings or books in your channel? Well, if he's still listening. Anyway, the question is, has she ever combined tarot and bibliomancy? Or does she have any thoughts on this? Was that part of the
Oh,
2018
that's
election?
great. I don't think I did bibliomancy with that, but I for sure will the next time. I think bibliomancy is amazing. I really love bibliomancy. Have you ever run across the Homeromantean? It's basically, this is old. It's from the PGM, I think, and it's like it takes 80 passages out of the Odyssey, and there is actually a digital version of it which you can
Wow.
use, which feels more random. So you can where you would get a relevant passage from the Odyssey. Anyway, but I think bibliomancy is great. I think it absolutely could be combined with tarot. I have never done it myself, but now I want to.
All right.
All right. Another one from Jonathan Dumir. Have you read Tomberg's Meditations?
I have not, unless I've read Meditations on the Tarot, which is by Anonymous, but that's probably something different because I don't know whether Tomberg is anonymous. I'd love to learn more about it.
Okay. And the third one was a super chat from Francis of Sophia Clot, but it wasn't a question. I'll show it anyway. It's divination is not tool dependent.
Yeah,
Francis
yeah,
Thank you for
loves
that.
that.
yeah. I think it's true.
I had a question. I usually ask, I think I asked you this last time. What have you to say about the deck of Thoth, Crowley deck?
Ah, yes, the fifth deck. I am a fan. I it was the second tarot deck that I bought after Rider-Waite-Smith in 1999, I think, in 1998, and I did not know what to do with that thing. I could not make it go. I tried and tried for maybe a few months at the time. And I thought, this is spooky. I don't understand what these astrological symbols mean. I didn't know about the Book of Thoth at that time. And I just did not know what to do with it. But, over the years, I would only use it for people who had a predilection for that deck. And then I would just sort of read it like I read Rider-Waite-Smith, knowing what I knew about Rider-Waite-Smith. But then it was really, when I became a little bit more attuned to Mel Maline's work, my co-host on Fortune's Wheelhouse, she is, Thoth forward. She is based on Thoth. And as I began to know her decks, I felt a calling to read the Book of Thoth and kind of understand it better. And of course, when we did Fortune's Wheelhouse, we went on a huge deep dive into Thoth, which taught me everything I know about Thoth. And I really truly appreciate it now. I love it, just both aesthetically. I think it's a beautiful deck, but also in terms of how explicit it is with the esoterics. It is, if you can understand what the rationale is behind the colors and the moods and the keywords behind that deck, then you have an enormous arsenal of meanings to add to your understanding of any deck. So it's not for everybody, of course. It does have a certain vibe, but I'm a fan.
Very good. Yeah, I learned astrology, or I'm not that I'm an expert, but before I got into the tarot. So I appreciated the astrological attributions and so forth. That's what made me a fan.
Yes.
It's cheat codes, things I didn't have to look at in the book.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, there's definitely, a way that the Thoth deck kind of expands your brain. Like, if you look at the Five of Swords and it's Venus in the first decan of Aquarius, that tells you something that you would not necessarily get just from looking at the picture on Rider-Waite-Smith.
And to be
Yeah,
clear,
great.
your book says it's a Rider-Waite-Smith. That's the one you're working with in
That's
your
what
book.
we're doing in the Living Tarot. I felt that because in the English speaking world, Rider-Waite-Smith really is the lingua franca of tarot. It's much easier to start with. I think there's something really fundamental about the fact that every card practically has a human face on it, right? That allows you to sort of just jump in there and have a relationship with it.
And if you had to create a tarot card, is there anything you would like a Succession tarot card or a Westworld tarot card or anything like that?
Well,
Silicon Valley.
Miguel, yeah, I don't know if I ever told you this, that once upon a time, it was before tarot correspondences, but just as a joke with a friend, I made a Cole Porter lyric tarot.
Oh, wow. No, I haven't
Yeah,
heard
there's
that. That's cool.
only 2 copies in existence, and I almost never use it, but, I'm a real Cole Porter nerd, um, so I did that. No, I would love to, I would love to have that skill. Both my parents were artists. I am not. I do
Mm.
some graphic design, but I'm not an artist, and one of the things I hope I'll do next year is force myself to develop that part of myself a little bit. Maybe as next year's Deccan Walk, I might, spend time. So every year, Deccan Walk, I spend 10 days with each of the 2 through 10 minor cards, getting to know them better. And last year, I put together a poem for each one. This year, I'm working with AI on each one. But next year, I think I would like to actually, develop the left side of my brain a little bit and work with, or rather the right side. The left side's all taken care of. Develop the right side of my brain a little bit and try to do some primitive drawing.
Awesome. Well, as we get to the end of the interview, Susan, any other last advice that you might want to give people outside of buy my damn book or any advice for the tarot reader out there?
Well, for those who have not started reading tarot, start. I think everyone should. I mean, I think that tarot is an incredible, powerful tool for being able to face your life. And then for those of you you know, who are already tarot readers, share it with the world. You know, it is a gift to be able to do this, and don't be shy about offering it to other people. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that. The other thing that I always mention when talking about the Living Tarot is that if you have bought the book, thank you, first of all. But if you have bought the book, save the receipt, because you can get the price of the book off of taking the Living Tarot course, the online course. And the online course is slightly different in the sense that although this is the textbook for it, on the online course, you have a monthly meeting with me and other students. You have feedback from me on assignments. And if you graduate, you get a reading from me as well. So it's a really good deal.
Yeah, and you've got, I think you mentioned over 300 students, so it's you're
Yeah, I think
jamming.
it's more than 350 by now, I
Wow.
think. Yeah. Coming up on 400. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely check it out. There was a addendum to that question, Susan, from
Oh,
Jonathan
it is
Doomer.
Meditations on the Tarot.
All right.
Oh, okay, fantastic. That's great. Yes. I find Meditations on the Tarot fascinating, and it's a brain stretcher for me because I'm not very well versed in Christian Hermeticism, but I really enjoy going with the major arcana, going down that wormhole and learning a little bit more about the way that author saw the majors.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Jonathan. I hope it answers your question. And of course, your website is simpletsusanchang.com, right?
That's right. That's
That's
right.
your Death Star or whatever you want to call it. Your vortex. Everything moves from there.
That's my Middle Earth.
Middle Earth, even better. Yeah, better than Death Star. Sorry. Awesome. Well, good questions, great comments over there, great discussions in the chat. And I don't have much else. First, I'll say, Vance, thanks for keeping the Chatico safe and for your input.
Oh, no problem. A little bit of Crowley puns here. It
There's
was a
something about Crowley that
oh
invites
yeah,
puns.
oh yeah, wonderful interview, and a great
Wonderful.
discussion.
Thank you so much, Vance.
Yeah, Susan, as always, it's a delight talking to you and reading your work. And yeah, good luck with everything. And we
Thanks
hope
so
to
much,
chat
Ralph.
sooner rather than later.
It's always good to catch up with you. Thanks again for inviting me.
Pleasure's all ours. And for everybody else, as I always say, have a good weekend. And yeah, write your own gospel, live your own myth. Until the next time, take care, everybody.